Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Warwick F1 show. This is the 44th episode of the 2025 season and we are back again with another race preview. This time looking ahead to the American Grand Prix on the permanent track, away from the street tracks finally, at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. Now, it's a track that we kind of have seen lots of entertainment on the past, hopefully can deliver again. My name's Anwar, I'm the host of this pod. I'm joined by three guests, two who have come on for the first time. We've got Alex and Kamal, who are new joiners to the pod, and I'm also joined by the regular co-host, Daniel. Lucy cannot be with us, unfortunately. She's got 3 back-to-back seminars, which is a great set of scheduling, I must say. But let's kick this off by just talking about what do we like Austin as a track? Is this a track that, I guess you start with you, Kamal, that you generally tend to enjoy?
Most of my time I enjoy watching street tracks, so Austin is not on my favorite list. But I enjoy what happens as a atmosphere of the Texas circuit, yes. What happens after the race, how much disqualifying have we seen. So yeah, I pretty enjoy that track.
How about you, Alex? Is this a track that really takes your fancy as a fan, or is it a bit boring to you?
I mean, COTA as a track has produced some good races, whereas I don't really see it as like a standout track because, of course, America has like 3 Grand Prix, so yeah, it's a bit unfair how they got to steal all the limelight, but yeah, it's a solid track because it's in the right moment of the season where things start really heating up, and it could be like a race which could influence title championships, like especially I feel like this is the race where something's gonna shift in the title fight because the other races are a bit more famous and people actually wanna like see, you know, good racing on there, whereas COTA, anything could happen, so like it could swing. Like let's say if Oscar gets a DNF and Lando could get like top 2, then that could be a possibility here, but not in any other subsequent tracks, I feel.
Interesting, Daniel. We did see something like Alex was mentioning about having some type of title dynamic, because when we look at what happened last season between Norris and Verstappen, that kind of, you know, it sparked a lot of discussion. Do you see this as another opportunity to have that level? Because we've come off the back of an incident between Norris and Piastri in Singapore. Could tempers be flaring once again?
It certainly could. I mean, this time last year we did have back-to-back championship kind of touch points, if you like, with Austin and Mexico. Verstappen and Norris coming to blows, so it could definitely happen 2 races in a row here. And of course the thing with Austin is it is not a difficult track to overtake. I think you're being quite harsh, to be honest, Alex. I think it is one of the best tracks of the season in terms of racing, purely because there are so many opportunities. You've got turn 1, yes, the first sector is great to watch cars around, but not too many overtaking opportunities, although they have tried in the past. But then that back straight leading into turns 12 to 15, which are kind of modelled after I think it's the Hockenheim Stadium section. The cars can go side by side through there, which isn't very common through kind of combined corner sequences at other tracks, which is something we definitely saw last year. Russell was getting forced out wide at turn 15 by the Ferraris, and it was a great watch. So there is definitely potential for that. It's runoff galore, so I'm not sure there's a much higher probability of a DNF than there is in, say, Singapore, but I think we could definitely see some wheel-to-wheel action.
I think that's the thing that I'm excited about, is that we've got a real opportunity to have side-by-side action. I think that twisty, turny section after the back straight is particularly underrated because you do get that side-by-side bit and you do see some unreal overtakes out of that. So hopefully we get to mirror that. Let's talk about where the championship is currently, what kind of situation it is, because I think it's a 22-point gap, if I'm not mistaken, between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. And this has been a gap that Norris has slowly been whittling down over the last few. Kamal, you are an Oscar Piastri fan, aren't you? So what's your perspective on the gap slowly diminishing over the last few races?
As a diehard Oscar fan, it's really sad watching firstly DNF in my country, and then just slowly losing his control over car. But I think Austin is kind of a track Piastri can make his comeback in, because it's less of a street track again. But overall, I hope Norris will DNF, of course. And it's not even biased. I'm pretty sure he will lose his temper on one of the corners with someone particular. That's my standpoint.
Interesting. How about you, Alex? Where do you stand on this? Do you think Norris has the momentum going into these next few races, considering the fact he is getting closer and closer to Oscar, and I think potentially may have like a mental upper hand coming after Singapore?
I feel like Norris, to be fair, looking at Singapore and the fact that he didn't really overtake Verstappen when he could have, like in the latter stages of the race, I feel like Norris doesn't really have the confidence to close in. So even though I'm a neutral on this, I really do think that like Piastri is probably going to win the title due to the fact that Norris has kind of been chickening out in certain races. It was initially like at the start of the season where that was the issue, and like in the middle of the season he was like getting a bit back, I guess. However, towards the end of this, not the end of the season, but towards where we are now, Norris has just not really been like, active. Like looking at his results, like he had a good stint between like Austria and Hungary, where he got first, second, first. But now he's slopped back again to the form he was in around about April, May time. So, yeah.
Interesting. Chickening out is one way of saying it. Firstly, Daniel, do you agree? And Kamal, where do you stand on him chickening out? Because I think that's a particularly inflammatory comment.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I think there were definitely moments of form that have swung between the two drivers. Norris obviously in the first race, and then Piastri almost every other race in the first half of the season. And then Norris did make that little comeback, as you were implying, Alex. But I think we've kind of reached the point now when neither of them are performing at the top of their game. I don't think either of them are on Russell or Verstappen form right now. And maybe it is that championship pressure that's kind of getting to them. Or maybe it is a case of them being kind of caught up in the development race and not being comfortable to push that McLaren car to the extremes as a Verstappen or a Russell are doing. So you could look at it from either perspective. Chickening out, you could say he wasn't aggressive enough, especially at Baku when he needed to make up those positions on his championship rival who had crashed out of the race, and the fact that he wasn't it was quite frustrating to watch, I'd say. But Singapore certainly wasn't chickening out. The way he threw it down the inside of Piastri into turn 3 was brave and probably the most decisive we've seen Norris all year.
I incline to agree. Kamal has got his head in his hands when he said this. Do you not see this as a really good aggressive overtake from Norris? Or
it was aggressive, but I think he was on the brink of rules there. I'm pretty sure it should have been a penalty, of course, but if I...
Really? A penalty,
Yeah, or papaya rules could be implemented. I also want to say that about chickening out, that McLaren have clinched their world championship, and I think both of the drivers will now focus on the drivers' championship now, and they will be even more aggressive than before, and no papaya rules will be implemented now.
I hope so, because I would like to have a straight shootout now where there is no kind of there's no kind of contingent rules that are kind of influencing the way they race, because I think that has been the story of the season, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's just like it does put a dampener on things. I think, well, I disagree with the sentiment that Norris it broke papaya rule. I think that it was on the line, but I think Norris needs to make that type of move for him to actually win this world title.
So why do you think that Piastri can't do the same move on him?
No, I'm not saying that, but I think Piastri's coming off this weekend with a chip on his shoulder, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I just think a point that was brought up quite a lot in the discussion post-Singapore was, why wasn't Norris given a warning for the move that he did on Piastri? They're completely different situations, if you're talking about the Austria, for example, where Piastri was given a warning for the move he tried on Norris. Norris couldn't be given a warning in Singapore because he was already ahead of Piastri by the time the incident had happened. So when people use that as an argument for McLaren favouring Norris, it doesn't really make any sense, because they are completely unrelated, and I think it's just a bit silly. But yeah, I mean, the papaya rules. If the one papaya rule was that they didn't touch and it was violated by Norris, I think Piastri is going to be quite upset about that, and I'm afraid slightly that the fact that we've had 2 weeks separating these races might have allowed the situation to cool down a little bit. I don't want a cool situation. I want to head up Oscar Piastri, who wants to put one on his teammate at the first corner at Kota and send it all the way to the checkered flag. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but it should be a cracker nonetheless.
I think if this was a back-to-back race weekend, it would be a complete different kettle of fish, for sure. Alex, we're going into a sprint weekend this weekend. Alright, so we're going to have that race on Saturday and then on Sunday. Do you think that affects things here for either one of these two McLarens?
I mean, if one of them screws up, it could be potentially not completely title deciding, but it will certainly provide a shift, because of course the race is going to come up practically straight after for like the F1 drivers, because like a day isn't even a gap for them, because they're probably so tired that they're just relaxing in their ice bath and then boom, they're racing again. So basically the difference between qualifying, sprint, race is, it basically feels like the same day for them. So the momentum's going to be there. Like, let's say if Piastri doesn't Azerbaijan, he probably wouldn't anyway, because he's been the most consistent in terms of like actual like on the track performance. Like, he's good at being, you know, he's probably the best driver on the grid at like not crashing, but Azerbaijan was like a little blip for him, I guess. And what I'll probably say is that even though Max Verstappen has had like a good record in the sprints, like George Russell's form has been great, so probably Russell first, but maybe like a McLaren second, Verstappen third, and then the other McLaren fourth, because to be honest, I don't know what's happened. I think it might have been like a floor issue or something like that, but they're starting to get a little bit worse, and Red Bull and Mercedes are getting a bit stronger. So we'll see how that influences the title race later.
I think that you've kind of perfectly segued into my next kind of discussion point, and it's the fact that we're going to have two kind of teams meddling in our title run-in here, because Mercedes have somehow secured a victory, and I think that comes as a surprise to them as well. I don't think they were expecting to be as competitive as they were in Singapore, but Red Bull have shown in 2 different weekends with 2 ultimately pretty different track characteristics that they can be on par, if not better, than the McLarens. Kamal, where do you think that this is something that will continue to impact the title race, or do you think that those 2 races that we've had, or those last few races that we've had, have been anomalies, and we'll go back to the kind of pattern of McLaren dominance after?
Oh, of course, I hope we'll go to a McLaren dominance. However, I think Mercedes will not do great on Kota this year, because we only saw them win in Canada and Singapore, right? They're mostly similar tracks, and on other tracks they haven't really showed much, for me at least. About Red Bull, I think it was an anomaly. Multiple pit stops ruined by McLaren strategies, and maybe some lost pole positions as well, fighting in the team. Maybe it will continue. Maybe McLaren will fight so much between each other that they will forget about Max Verstappen and Red Bull as a whole, and just let him win. But I hope that will not happen.
How about you, Daniel? Do you think Verstappen will continue to be a thorn in the side, or is he still? I know we had discussions a couple of weeks ago about, is he actually in this battle? Those seem to have been quieted down after not winning last weekend. Do you think he still has the power to get involved here, or is he just going to be a thorn?
Well, when you put it that way, in that it's not kind of in Max's hands anymore. Even if he wins every race, he needs a bit of McLaren misfortune to be able to get properly back into that championship hunt. So it is a long shot, but it does seem like he is in the running for the race wins, and for me that's enough. Just to have kind of more competition for the race win every weekend is something to look forward to, other than the McLarens, of course. But I think it's a good point you made in that the McLaren battle could kind of hinder themselves in just as recently as last year, for example, when Verstappen sent it up the inside of Norris into turn 1, and that allowed Charles Leclerc through to go and win the race because Ferrari had the pace that day. And if Norris and Piastri start kind of having that battle like that, and they kind of push the rules to the limits, it is possible that an outsider could slip through it and take it, because George Russell's clearly on top form as well. There are these meddling factors that you can't underestimate when you're in a McLaren car that's not as dominant as it was.
It does feel like that kind of dominance has faded over the last few, right? I think they had a stronghold over those top 2 positions for quite a while. I don't think that's really the case anymore by the looks of things. And I think that only makes the championship a bit more interesting, because rather than having a lock-in 1-2 every weekend, you might have a Red Bull in between. That means it's a bigger point swing. Who knows, right? It's ultimately, I think that brings a little bit more jeopardy involved here in terms of what we're looking at. In terms of just we haven't talked about the Ferraris. I think it's worth talking about. Alex, do you, as a Ferrari fan yourself, do you have any hope, or is it just?
I mean, to be honest,
depression?
like, we probably need to fight for second place in the Constructors' Championship. Just keep Red Bull at bay, because if we lose to just a one-man team, then that'll be seriously humiliating. I mean, it was disappointing that like Hamilton failed on his brakes, because it could have been a Ferrari 6-7, but well,
No, we're not doing it. No.
yeah, we're not doing.
No.
No, but seriously, if we're fighting for like 6th place, 7th place, then we do need to go back to the drawing board and actually like work on 2026, because yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in 2026, but I've heard rumours that like the Mercedes engine is good, so yeah, I think we might be cooked, but yeah, and of course McLaren, Mercedes, whoever's using the engine is going to do well, and then Red Bull and Ferrari are probably going to suffer, to be honest. And speaking on a point about Mercedes that you, Kamal, made earlier on, I think they only have like the prestige, like, you know, like their car is significantly better on the street circuits, and I think like on non-street circuits they're just like on par with like the Red Bulls, and I think like McLarens are usually should be on top on like the like just the average mid-temperature, like 20 degrees outside tracks.
It does feel like across the board the McLarens have the best car, but in certain conditions the Mercs can kind of spring up a little bit of a surprise. Kamal, what you got something to add about?
I want to say about Antonelli, because we haven't talked about him.
Yeah.
I said only things about Russell. I wanted to say that Antonelli's form outside of Europe wasn't really that good. I even have a statistics. Let me tell you.
He's got the stats to back it up.
Yes, I do. Hold on, let me open it. So basically, in Europe he had been performing bad, but in the rest of the world he has performed good. In Italy, Monaco, Spain, Austria, UK, it was mostly DNFs and P18, but in rest of the world, like Australia, China, Japan, Canada, Azerbaijan, it was like P4 to P3 to P6. So I think his form in US will actually be better than his
better than the European form.
Yes,
right?
better than the European form.
I think as well with the fact that he's armed with a new contract now. He's been and him and George Russell have been announced that they're being retained for 2026, putting to bed all the Verstappen rumours that have circulated over the last 3 to 4 months. So they're continuing with that driveline. It sounds like Russell got the paycheck he deserved, because I've heard that he's being paid over 30 million a year for his because he's been given a multi-year extension as part of his thingy, so part of his contract. So I think he's gonna be a happy man rolling in cash. Put it that way. But I think with that news, I think that should give him a lot of confidence, right? I think people like Jacques Villeneuve were giving a lot of lip about he doesn't deserve a seat, which I found ridiculous because I think he's got talent, clearly. He's evident of that.
Jacques Villeneuve said that about George Russell.
No, not George Russell.
Antonelli.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay,
My
that makes
bad.
sense. The paycheck,
Yeah.
The paycheck thing is.
I did throw you off there. That is my bad.
No, it's fine.
I'm doing a bad job of hosting.
I thought even Jacques Villeneuve couldn't possibly make that outrageous a claim.
Of all the people to say it would be Jacques Villeneuve.
It would, yeah. I don't know why I was surprised.
He's such an interesting character. Just to talk about the weather, because we don't normally do a little bit of a weather check. It looks completely dry, so there shouldn't be any kind of curveballs. We've seen weather come up before in the pod, and it's turned out to be completely dry. But just figure that it'd be worth talking about that.
You know what? I think that's actually quite exciting.
What, the fact it's dry?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because Pirelli have decided to do something different. And I say
going
different.
Into tyre chat.
We are definitely moving out of Anwar's favourite territories.
I hate talking about tyres if you don't know.
Into tyre chat. But Belgian Grand Prix this year, right? Pirelli brought a jump in tyre compounds. So they missed out one of the tyre compounds, and we had 3 that were non-consecutive. But we didn't get to see how that would play out in the race because it was a wet start, and the drivers started on the intermediates. Albeit not for long, because the FIA waited for way too long to get the race underway. But this time, the FIA have decided to bring non-consecutive compounds again, and that should hopefully throw some strategy intrigue into the mix. It's either going to be a one-stop from hard to medium, but hopefully there'll also be some mixture, maybe a 2-stop involving a medium and 2 soft, which would be aggressive, and I'd probably opt for that strategy if I were, say, Max Verstappen in a slightly less competitive Red Bull, perhaps. So there is that perspective, but also the tyre situation, tyre degradation in general, clears up a lot over the weekend. Last year it was like, there's no way it's going to be only a one-stop after the sprint. These tyres weren't surviving, but then the track kind of evolved. And it meant that we could do a one-stop easily, which was a shame. But yeah, strategy intrigue.
Fingers crossed for a 2-stop, because I think it makes such a big difference. Let's quickly talk about some of the midfield cars. Again, there's been a complete roulette in terms of different teams being competitive between, let's say, the Williams taking points, the RBs, the Aston Martins showing up here and there. Alex, who do you kind of pick, I guess, to be like the top of the midfield?
I feel like the top of the midfield might again be like the V-Carbs that are rising up, and of course Hadjar is probably, I mean, I hope this doesn't happen, but Hadjar's probably going to be demoted to the Red Bull second seat, so...
It is a diversion for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, I just feel like he's been doing great, but that's the problem. He's going to be promoted unless he moves to another team, which will probably not happen because the Mercedes seats have now been confirmed, so all the big teams have got their drivers secured for 26, and yeah, I think his best bet is to just stay at the V-Carb team because, yeah, I feel like, I don't know what's going to happen with the Red Bull second seat. I think Tsunoda's probably, this could be a topic for discussion next, but Tsunoda might be replaced by someone else. I don't know, maybe just yank someone out of F2 and then make them suffer for an entire season.
I mean, I think when we're looking at drivers under pressure, he's probably top of the list, right? He's fighting for his future. That future is definitely going to be in an RB if it exists. Let's be honest. There's no chance he's getting retained in that Red Bull. I think Hadjar doesn't really get a choice in the matter in terms of staying at V-Carb or not. He will be pushed into that RB, the Red Bull team, and I guess from his perspective, I think if you're a top tier Formula 1 driver, you want to be in the best car possible. I know it seems like an absolute dog to drive sometimes. It is categorically still a better car than RB, or should be, right? It's got more resources, better team behind it, and I guess if Verstappen's able to win, then clearly there is some way of extracting performance. And I think if you are a professional athlete, you believe that you've got what it takes to extract that performance. So I think from Hadjar's perspective, I reckon he'll be okay. Another driver I just want to quickly touch on before we talk about predictions is Franco Colapinto, because I think he is also another driver that I would say is definitely under threat. not scored any points, not really made any inroads against his teammate. To be fair, I think he has been unlucky because I think they have team ordered him about. Kamal, do you think that this is the weekend where he finally gets his first points this season, or do you think the Alpine is so bad he will remain pointless?
Franco Colabum has.
I like this.
Has lost me a multiple of points in fantasy formula, so I will jump on that hate train and say that he will not score any points. Alpine is a tractor this year.
Agreed.
And,
I agree.
I hope, because I like Pierre Gasly. I hope they will recover from this next year. But I think Franco will not save his sit and definitely be out by the next season. That's my standpoint.
Honestly, I'm so glad that you said that. Daniel, are you going to rebut?
Yes, I will rebut, actually, because you may have forgotten that Franco Colapinto has out-qualified Pierre Gasly in the last 3 qualifying sessions, guys. So it's not all bad.
Whoa! Yeah, I love it when I'm out qualifying in 15s.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, actually. But I think that any progress is good progress.
Yeah.
And with the Mercedes power unit, perhaps people will start to notice that he is out-qualifying his teammate next year, if he is given the option to stay next year. And I think Flav should just take a chance and keep him on for a while. He stopped crashing, I think, which is quite an important thing. He hasn't had a crash in a while.
He hasn't. You are right.
Yeah. Did he?
Not in the race, but
In qualifying.
When's the last time he's crashed in a race? Can't be that recent,
that's the
right?
really costly one. I mean, he would have qualified last anyway in Azerbaijan if he crashed, but even if he didn't crash, sorry. But yeah, no, I think it's quiet, good progress.
Do you think it is quite good progress, or is it quiet and just no progress, Alex?
I mean, to be honest, he's probably getting like the Mazepin or Sargent treatment, and the fact that like not scoring a point is really detrimental to a Formula One driver's career. And like, oh yeah, I forgot Nick De Vries, but
You are. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, if a Formula One driver gets 0 points, then that's really what it like a problem for their career, because I know the Alpine's a tractor, but still Gasly managed to get 6th place at Silverstone. So even though it was like a little bit lucky for him, Hulkenberg got his first podium and like all sorts of shenanigans happened. Yeah, I do feel like the Alpine could possibly get into the top 10, and Colapinto almost did that in one race, but yeah, I forgot which race it was because I wasn't even looking at him because he hasn't really done anything substantial this season. Sorry.
So close yet so far, but I would like to offer a rebuttal to my rebuttal.
Was it the last rebuttal before we move on to predictions?
Yeah, it's a rebuttal to my own rebuttal though, so it's fine. Which is that perhaps recently, when Colapinto has been stepping up his form slightly, the Alpine has fallen off and become that tractor, which could mean that Pierre Gasly's performances have kind of tailed off in kind of motivation. He's lacking a little bit.
I can understand that because he's obviously far better than what that car suggests.
He's just waiting for next year, and he's leading that team, so he's focusing on developing that team for next year as well.
I can get on board with that. Kamal, last thing.
Last information, and it's not even related to the what things we said. I wanted to say about the liveries on Austin. Have you seen the liveries? Mm-hmm. They're really sick, actually. I like most of them. The Williams one, the McLaren one. I think it shouldn't be skipped because
we do normally talk about this. It's just completely skipped my mind. But you are right in saying this.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Worth the interjection for sure. Let's move on to our prediction segment. And let me just briefly explain what that is. We're going to have, because it's a sprint weekend, we're going to predict sprint winner, who's going to finish 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Then we're going to do our DNF, so who do we expect to not finish the Grand Prix, and our completely random prediction that is kind of just whatever you think of. It could be if you see how many red flags, how many safety cars, how many cars finish, or it can even be penalty related. So really anything and everything. Daniel, why don't you start us off, because why not?
Why not? I can't think of a reason why not, so I will. Sprint winner is going to be Max Verstappen. I think his style of just being really rapid in the first few laps of a weekend is going to really pay off, and it might be quite low grip conditions as well if the track's not rubbing in, which could help him because he has a great feel. P1 in the race is also going to be Max Verstappen, just because it's his kind of circuit, and he went on an incredible run of winning many races in a row in the US, so it's his country as well. Lando Norris is going to be second, wrestling back a bit of that margin in the Drivers' Championship, peeling it back a little bit, maybe just for hype's sake, but there we are. Charles Leclerc in P3, pretty good around Austin, as evidenced by his win last year. Well done to him for that. And Oscar Piastri is going to come home in 4th position. He finished very close to Norris in last year's race, maybe within 2 seconds, I think it was, but that doesn't matter really, and nothing matters about last year anymore, it's just independent. And George Russell is going to finish in 5th position, just kind of where that Mercedes is going to deserve to be.
Yeah, I think George Russell in 5th is generally like a safe thing. It always nets us points every weekend, just throwing him in there. Let me go through mine and then let me go through Lucy's, then mine, and then we'll get on to Kamal and Alex for their predictions as well. Let me get Lucy's predictions up. I am just going very slowly for whatever reason, but here we are. What am I looking for? I'll go with mine in the meantime. Right, I sort that out. Okay, so I said that Lando Norris wins the sprint, and I also think Lando Norris wins the Grand Prix. And I'm saying this on the basis of something that we will get to later. I'm doing a little bit of foreshadowing. I'm saying Max Verstappen finishes second. You always see, I think, like you mentioned, it's a track he historically goes really well at. And although that Red Bull might not have the outright pace, I think he'll be there dragging that car to wherever it needs to be. I've also matched you and said Leclerc in 3rd. So I have. This is going to be pretty similar. My 4th place, I've gone George Russell. I think it's just unbelievably consistent, and I think we'll have 2 Mercedes in the top 5. I've gone Kimi Antonelli in 5th. I think there is a clear omission there.
There is a notable exception,
And
which
we'll
I'm
get
looking
to
forward
that.
to hearing about
Yeah.
later.
Let me go through Lucy's because I was supposed to get them up, but here we are. There we are. I've got it. She has said Max Verstappen win in the sprint. Oscar Piastri leading a 1-2 for the McLaren. Then a finished George Russell finishing 3rd. Oh my god, I've seen his 4th. For reference, if you don't know, Lucy's a very big Williams fan. She's put Alex Albon in 4th. I hope this blows up in her face.
Diabolical.
I hope this blows up in her face. But she's put Albon in 4th, and she's put Max Verstappen in 5th. So not really as hopeful of Verstappen's and Red Bull's performance this weekend. I'm kind of shell-shocked by the fact she said Alex Albon, to be honest. But you know what? Here we are. If it pays off for her, fair enough. But you know what her predictions are like. Kamal, let's go with you next. What have you put as your sprint winner and top 5?
So as my sprint winner, I put my nemesis Norris.
Okay.
So as my winner of the US Grand Prix, I put Piastri.
Oh.
Then Verstappen, because he was on form in the last few races, of course. Then 3rd is Norris. Antonelli.
Interesting.
And on 5th, I couldn't decide, so I put one of the RBs.
You got to say a name. Is it Hajar or Lawson?
It's Hajar.
It's Hajar.
It's
Interesting.
Hajar.
I mean, we do normally throw in. There's normally a little bit of a surprise for that 5th sometimes. Like I think we have put Bortoletto in there, and it's not paid off.
Notice how I didn't put George Russell there.
Yeah, well, that is interesting. We'll get to that potentially in a moment. Alex, how about you?
I think the sprint winner should be pretty easy. I think that'll be Max Verstappen because his form on like short laps has been pretty great lately, and yeah, I do feel like he's going to continue on his form. And however, I will go for, unfortunately for you, I will go for Lando Norris for 1st place. And I do think that the gap between Norris and Piastri will close, both in the sprint and in the actual race.
Interesting.
I feel like the McLarens could be Verstappen's going to be sandwiched by the McLarens. So I would say Norris first, Verstappen second, Piastri third, and then for my final two, I would go for. Realistically, I want a Ferrari 4-5. I feel like Hamilton's always been pretty alright at COTA, so I would say Leclerc 4th, Hamilton 5th, and you notice that I omitted a specific team from the rankings. I do feel like it's COTA. Mercedes has always been good at street circuits. I do feel like there might be some sort of incident with the Mercedes, perhaps because George Russell, I feel like, to be honest, he's going to crash. And you've omitted Piastri, so you think he's going to crash. That's interesting.
Well, you just spoiled it. Well, see, you didn't need to spoil it. It's going to be a little storyline. Let's whiz through our DNF and random predictions quickly. So, Daniel, do you want to hit us off first?
DNF with Lawson, made some enemies with Alonso last year, so maybe he just has enough and puts him in the wall this time. And the random prediction is there are going to be at least 3 separate overtakes for the lead.
Ooh!
I'm manifesting a banger, guys.
I like that. Let me go through my DNF. I think it's pretty obvious because it has been spoilt by Alex, but I have said Oscar Piastri DNFs, and the reason is I think we've seen Piastri get a little bit hot under the collar. I'm thinking Austria, and he kind of has gotten away with it a couple of times, trying to send it down the inside. I think his luck will run out in this case. I think he's going to be driving slightly with a chip on his shoulder, and that's not going to benefit him. I think he's going to try and send a move, and it's going to curtail this race quickly. So that's my DNF. My random prediction is we're going to have 2 safety cars. No real reason for that, really. I'm just hoping and praying. But yeah, let me go through Lucy's DNF and random prediction, and then we can move on to Kamal and Alex too before we round out the show. You're not the only one, Daniel, who said Liam Lawson DNFs, because Lucy did as well. I feel like Lawson's in good form, so I'm surprised that 2 people have said that. And her random prediction is collar points.
Ooh.
Which is exactly against what me and Kamal were saying, because we're riding the hate train till the end. Kamal, quickly go through your random prediction and DNF.
So as I said, I think Stroll will DNF, but I think George Russell will be disqualified by the end of the race as well.
Oh, is that like a technical reason or?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I'm manifesting, and for my prediction, I think Haas will both of the Haases will score points on this race, in sprint or in the race as well.
Right. Do we want to take? Okay, I don't mind that. Why not? Double Haas points. I don't think Haas would really.
Haas actually went really well here last year.
Did they?
I think so. I think they got double points in possibly either the sprint or the race.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. There's reason.
It's a good shout.
Alex, quickly before we round up the show, what is your DNF and random prediction?
I feel like DNF might actually be Russell, because I feel like, it might be DNF, might be DQ, but I feel like it's just he's done well, but I feel like the form will sometime end, and I think there'll be an incident with like Russell and somebody like possibly one of the Williamses, maybe like Albon or might be Albon or Sainz. I think those 2 might crash.
Interesting. What's your random prediction?
Random prediction, I feel like Sauber. Let's go for it. Sauber double points, but it's like 8th, 10th.
Okay, yeah, so like a minor point for double finish. Yeah, I like that. Okay, 2 double points, random prediction. So that brings us to the end of this episode of the Warwick F1 Show podcast. I want to thank our 2 new guests, Kamal and Alex, for coming along. I want to thank Daniel, always trusty to have by my side. But we'll be back at the end, back at some point next week to deliver you the review. So what hopefully is going to be an interesting Grand Prix. I want to also remind you that we are doing a race sprint viewing on campus on Saturday. And we're going to the Clarendon on Sunday, so feel free to join us then. But until next time, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.